Night falls over a makeshift commune, somewhere on the outskirts of civilization. The air is thick with the scent of earth and sweat, mingling with the faint aroma of candle wax. In the dim glow, shadows flicker across plywood walls adorned with hand-painted scriptures and faded photographs. The world outside is distant, almost unreal, as if the boundaries of this place have been drawn not by fences, but by faith itself. A circle forms around a battered guitar. Fingers strum gentle chords. Voices rise in unison, soft, melodic, almost angelic. The song is a lullaby, a hymn, a promise. To the untrained ear, it is the sound of unity, of family. But beneath the surface, something else pulses, a silent tension, a question unspoken. Children sit cross-legged on threadbare rugs, their faces illuminated by candlelight, eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. They listen as adults speak of love, of sacrifice, of a world outside that is lost and broken. Here, they are told, is salvation. Here, they are safe. Here, they are chosen. But the safety is an illusion, as fragile as the paper lantern swaying in the night breeze. The man whose words shape this world is not present, but his presence is everywhere. His teachings are recited in whispers, his letters read aloud as gospel. David Berg, a name spoken with reverence and fear. He is the prophet, the father, the architect of this reality. His vision is absolute, his authority unquestioned. In his absence, his followers enforce his will with a devotion that borders on fanaticism. In this insular universe, boundaries blur. The language of love is twisted, its meaning reshaped to serve the needs of the group. Children are taught to trust, to obey, to surrender their doubts in exchange for belonging. The outside world is painted as a place of darkness and sin. Only here, within these walls, can true light be found. But the light is blinding, and in its glare, innocence is quietly, methodically stripped away. A little girl clutches a worn doll, her small fingers tracing the seams as she listens to the adults. Their words are gentle, but their eyes are hard. She does not yet understand the rules, the rituals, the expectations that will soon define her life. For now, she is sheltered by the illusion of family, the warmth of communal song. But already, the seeds of fear have been planted. She senses the weight of secrets, the tension that crackles beneath every smile. Outside, the wind rustles through the trees, carrying with it the distant sounds of a world that has forgotten these children. Inside, the music continues, a hypnotic refrain that promises love but delivers something far more sinister. The children of God call themselves a family, a movement, a revolution of spirit. But for those who live within its grasp, it is a labyrinth with no exit, a place where trust is weaponized and faith becomes a tool of control. This is not just the story of a cult. It is a chronicle of innocence betrayed, of spiritual hunger twisted into submission, and of a global network where children learn to fear the very word love. What begins as a promise of paradise will descend into an abyss, and the path there is paved with faith, manipulation, and the relentless shadow of one man's vision. But what lies beneath this surface harmony is far darker than anyone could imagine. The true story of the children of God is about to begin. The late 1960s. Across the Western world, the earth trembles with the footsteps of a restless generation. The post-war order is buckling under the weight of rebellion. Civil rights marches fill the streets, anti-war protests thunder across university campuses, and the summer of love blooms with the promise of liberation. But what lies beneath this surface harmony is far darker than anyone could imagine. The true story of the children of God is about to begin. In the United States, the old certainties are dissolving. Faith in government, in church, in family. The air crackles with incense and revolution, but also with uncertainty. Amid the chaos, the search for meaning becomes a silent epidemic. In this feverish landscape, spiritual seekers drift through San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury, London's Notting Hill, the beaches of Rio de Janeiro. Psychedelic music blares from transistor radios. The words peace and love are as common as the laughter of barefoot strangers. Yet even among the swirl of color and optimism, shadows gather. The mainstream churches stand empty. The language of the pulpit feels distant, hollow, incapable of answering the desperate questions that echo in every young mind. Who am I? What is real? What is left to believe in? It is precisely here, in the cracks of a fractured society, that new prophets emerge. Charismatic, unsatisfied, hungry for followers. Among them is David Berg, a failed preacher from California, a man whose life has been a series of ruptures and reinventions. To the dispossessed youth of the counterculture, Berg offers not just another ideology, but a family, a home built not of brick and blood, but of spirit and radical trust. Under his guidance, a handful of followers begin gathering in abandoned houses and city parks, drawn by the promise of unconditional belonging. They call themselves the children of God. But this is not merely a spiritual awakening. It is a movement forged in the crucible of social collapse. The children of God are born from the ashes of lost faith and shattered tradition. Their gospel is one of love, but also of separation. From parents, from the outside world, from the very fabric of the society that once defined them. The group grows like wildfire, fed by the hunger of those who feel unseen, unheard, unanchored. Newspapers begin to whisper of a strange new cult, traveling in battered vans from city to city. Their songs are infectious, their joy almost evangelical, but their isolation is absolute. They reject the comforts of Western life, turning instead to communal living, shared possessions, and a doctrine that blurs the boundaries between faith and control. It is a doctrine that will soon become a weapon, and the world, still intoxicated by dreams of peace, does not see the storm that is gathering on the horizon. On the surface, the children of God seem to embody the utopian ideals of their era. Their communes are filled with laughter, music, and the shared labor of daily survival. Yet beneath this veneer, a new order is taking shape, one governed not by consensus, but by the iron will of a single man. Berg's teachings, at first gentle and inclusive, begin to shift. The group's literature grows more insular, more apocalyptic. Outsiders are labeled as enemies, and the concept of the system, the corrupt world beyond their walls, becomes a specter invoked to justify ever-tightening control. As the decade turns, the children of God are no longer just a fringe movement. They are a phenomenon, spreading across continents, recruiting from the lost and the hopeful alike. But the seeds of dissent, sown in the fertile ground of social upheaval, are already beginning to bear bitter fruit. The darkness they conceal will soon force itself into the light. In the early 1970s, as the last embers of the counterculture flicker out, David Berg's vision solidifies into doctrine. No longer content with the passive embrace of spiritual seekers, he forges a movement with rules as rigid as steel, disguised beneath the velvet promise of love. What began as a loose fellowship of drifters and idealists becomes an intricate web, each strand anchored by absolute loyalty to the man they now call Moses David. Berg's teachings, delivered through rambling, apocalyptic letters, flood the communes. His words are both scripture and law. The world outside is irredeemably corrupt. Families are instruments of oppression. Only in the tight embrace of their community can salvation be found. He urges his followers to cut ties with their pasts, to sever relationships with parents and siblings, to surrender all possessions. Every bond, every memory, every hope is to be remade in his image. Under Berg's command, the group becomes itinerant. Caravans of battered vans wind their way through cities and across borders, seeking souls to recruit and safe havens to build new outposts. Each commune is a world unto itself, Spartan, crowded, governed by daily rituals and the ever-present surveillance of one another. Children learn early that love is conditional, and that questioning is punished with isolation or exile. The language of the group grows increasingly insular. Outsiders are systemites, unworthy of trust or compassion. But the most radical transformation is yet to come. In a movement meant to break down the barriers of the world, Berg introduces a new form of evangelism, one that weaponizes intimacy and sexuality as tools for recruitment. He coins the term flirty fishing, encouraging women in the group to use seduction as a means of drawing new followers and financial support. The boundary between the sacred and the profane blurs until it dissolves entirely. Children witness what they cannot comprehend, the lessons of innocence replaced by rituals of obedience and secrecy. As the children of God establish communes across Europe, South America, and Asia, their presence becomes a shadow network, untraceable yet everywhere. Members take on new names, erasing old identities. Letters from Berg circulate like contraband, their contents growing more extreme with each passing month. The outside world grows wary, but the group's mechanisms of control become more sophisticated. Punishments for dissent are harsh, confessions are mandatory, and surveillance is constant. Slowly, the community turns inward, ever more insular, ever more loyal to the prophet who guides them from afar. Inside these walls, the sense of family is both a comfort and a curse. Communal meals and shared songs mask a growing climate of fear. Children are separated from their parents, raised collectively, their days regimented by the doctrines of the group. The smallest acts of rebellion, a whispered question, a longing glance at the outside world, are met with swift correction. The movement that once promised freedom now clings to its flock with a grip that will not loosen. And as the new decade dawns, the children of God stand on the threshold of a darkness even their founder cannot fully control. But this is only the first layer. The descent has only just begun. The early 1980s. The children of God, now rebranded as the Family of Love, are no longer invisible. Their communes, once shrouded in secrecy, begin to draw the attention of authorities. Whispers travel through the cities and towns where their vans stop. Rumors of missing children, of families torn apart, of strange rituals hidden behind locked doors. The movement's rapid expansion has become its Achilles heel. Wherever the group plants its flag, suspicion soon follows. Inside the communes, tension simmers. The relentless surveillance, the forced confessions, the public punishments, these mechanisms of control, once accepted as necessary, now breed resentment and fear. Children, growing older in the crucible of isolation, begin to question the world they were taught to reject. Some sneak forbidden books into their bunks. Others exchange hurried whispers about escape. A few, emboldened by glimpses of the outside world, risk everything for a chance at freedom. The walls that once kept evil at bay now feel like the bars of a prison. But the greatest rupture comes from within. David Berg's revelations, once received with reverence, become erratic and disturbing. New letters circulate through the flock, filled with prophecies of apocalypse and increasingly explicit instructions. Sexual boundaries, already blurred, are shattered altogether. Children are drawn into rituals they cannot understand, their innocence sacrificed on the altar of obedience. Parents, powerless and indoctrinated, are forced to comply or risk losing everything, including their own children. News stories begin to leak. Former members, battered by trauma and guilt, speak to journalists in hushed tones. They describe lives of perpetual fear, of punishments meted out for the smallest doubts, of nights spent dreading the sound of footsteps in the corridor. For the first time, the world glimpses the machinery of abuse that churns behind the movement's smiling facade. Investigations are launched in the United States, in Europe, in South America. Police raid communes, searching for missing children and evidence of exploitation. Some communities scatter overnight, their members disappearing like ghosts. Others dig in, convinced that persecution is proof of their righteousness. The group fractures. Some leaders, once loyal to Berg, recoil from the darkness they helped to build. They attempt quiet reforms or flee with their own families. But many remain trapped, bound by the invisible chains of fear and faith. The outside world, so long demonized, becomes a distant hope, a place of uncertain freedom but possible rescue. Inside, the atmosphere grows heavier with every passing day. Communal meals are eaten in silence, eyes averted. Children are separated from siblings and friends, shuffled between communes to prevent bonds that might foster rebellion. The doctrine grows more apocalyptic, the punishments more severe. The myth of paradise is now a waking nightmare. Families are broken, lives are shattered, and the echoes of betrayal reverberate far beyond the commune walls. But the story does not end here. What follows is darker still, a legacy of pain that will ripple outward for decades to come. Here begins the part most never dared to imagine. As the 1980s fade into the 1990s, the children of God, now calling themselves simply the family, become an international ghost network. Their leadership, scattered by constant flight from scandal and prosecution, learns new ways to hide. The movement fragments into hundreds of communes, each ruled by its own hierarchy of fear, but all still shackled to the words and decrees of the unseen prophet. David Berg, aging and paranoid, slips further into isolation, his prophecies drifting into delirium, yet his grip on the group remains unbroken. The doctrines mutate. Manuals are produced, binding members to increasingly strict codes of silence. Children, the movement's most vulnerable, are taught to distrust outsiders and even each other. Their world is an endless cycle of chores, confessions, and indoctrination. At night, the stories they whisper beneath their blankets are not of childhood wonder, but of warnings. How to avoid punishment, how to hide forbidden thoughts, how to survive the next day. The communal homes are suffused with an atmosphere of dread. Any sign of doubt is swiftly crushed. The line between discipline and cruelty vanishes completely. Sexual abuse, once whispered about in shadows, becomes systematized. Letters from the leadership rationalize the unthinkable, twisting scripture into perverse justification. Children are told that suffering is proof of spiritual worthiness, that pain itself is a gift from God. The very concept of family is weaponized. Mothers and fathers are forced to surrender their children to communal caretakers. Siblings are separated to prevent dangerous bonds. The old world is demonized so thoroughly that even the idea of escape becomes a kind of blasphemy. Meanwhile, the group's reach extends across continents. In Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, new outposts spring up, promising hope to the desperate and sanctuary to the lost. Local authorities are bribed or deceived. Neighbors are kept at arm's length by elaborate lies. The group publishes cheerful magazines, glossy photographs of smiling children, tales of charity work and missionary zeal. But behind the staged images, the machinery of abuse operates unchecked. The children become the silent currency of the cult, used to attract donations, manipulate outsiders, and maintain the internal hierarchy through control and fear. Occasionally, a child or teenager manages to escape. Their testimonies, when they reach the outside world, are almost impossible to believe. Stories of relentless punishment, of rituals that blur the line between worship and violation, of lives lived in terror and confusion. But for every voice that breaks free, there are hundreds more silenced by shame, trauma, and the omnipresent threat of retaliation. The cult's tentacles reach far, and its influence is insidious. Even as the world becomes more aware of its crimes, the family finds new ways to disappear, adapt, and continue the cycle. This is the era in which the group's mythos transforms into a machinery of suffering, a dark legacy written into the lives of thousands of children who never chose their fate. The shadow cast by the children of God grows longer, touching every continent, every language, every faith. And the world, now forced to confront the unimaginable, begins to ask, how could such darkness have thrived in plain sight? Yet beneath every revelation, there remains another question, one that haunts the survivors long after the gates of the communes are closed. What becomes of a childhood stolen by faith and a trust shattered by those meant to protect? As the 20th century gives way to the 21st, the Children of God, now calling themselves the Family International, attempts to rewrite its story. Official apologies are issued, carefully worded statements that acknowledge mistakes of the past without ever naming the crimes. New policy papers disavow the abuses, and glossy websites promise transparency, compassion, and reform. The old leaders retreat into obscurity. Some die, others vanish into private life, their names forever linked to crimes that can never truly be erased. But the damage is written into the bones of those who survived, and the echoes of trauma refuse to be silenced by rebranding. Across continents, survivors emerge from the shadows, carrying with them the weight of invisible scars. In courtrooms and media interviews, they recount the rituals of silence, the stolen years, the identities fractured by indoctrination. Many struggle with addiction, depression, and the persistent ache of betrayal. Some find themselves unable to trust, drifting through adulthood with a sense of exile that never fades. The world, now primed by decades of scandal, listens with a mix of horror and disbelief. Legal battles unfold in the United States, Europe, and Latin America. Some perpetrators are brought to trial, most are not. The burden of proof is heavy, memories fragmented by trauma, evidence lost to time and secrecy. For every story that reaches the public, dozens remain locked away, too painful or dangerous to tell. Meanwhile, the group adapts to a digital age. Recruitment moves online, language softens, and the doctrines are sanitized. The public face is one of charity work, disaster relief, education. But for many survivors, these gestures are not enough. The past cannot be erased by rebranding. The network of exploitation lingers in private forums, in secret meetings, in familial lines where silence is inherited like a curse. Some former members, now adults, struggle with the impossible task of reconciling the love they once felt for their community with the horror of what was done to them. Others dedicate their lives to advocacy, determined to expose every hidden corner of the cult's legacy. Social workers, psychologists, and activists labor to untangle the legacy of harm. Shelters for former cult members open in cities where the family once thrived. Support groups form, both in person and online, where survivors find the words to name their pain and begin the slow work of rebuilding. Some confront their abusers in court. Others struggle just to put one foot in front of the other. The process is agonizing and non-linear, a mosaic of attempted healing, unresolved rage, and the persistent longing for justice. Generations are marked by the cult's reach. Children of survivors inherit the silence, the suspicion, the need to question every authority. Yet the ripples extend far beyond the individuals directly affected. The story of the Children of God becomes a cautionary tale studied by scholars and law enforcement, a case that shapes new policies on child protection and cult intervention. Documentaries, books, and podcasts drag old secrets into the light, giving voice to those who were silenced for so long. The world is forced to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of faith, the limits of forgiveness, and the responsibility of society to protect its most vulnerable. And still, questions remain. Can trust ever be restored? Can innocence, once lost, ever be reclaimed? In the faces of the survivors, some scarred, some defiant, all marked by history, the world sees the true cost of unchecked zealotry and the silent strength required to rise from its ruins. Among the thousands whose childhoods were shaped by the cult's shifting shadows, a single memory lingers. A small room in a foreign city, the glow of a street lamp filtering through a cracked window. Here sits a woman named Anna, her hands trembling as she holds a faded photograph. Herself as a child, dressed in the uniform simplicity of the commune, her eyes distant, her smile practiced for the camera. Anna's story is not unique, but it is singular in its detail, a thread that, when pulled, unravels the tapestry of a collective wound. She remembers the silence most of all, the silence at night when the songs had ended and the doors were bolted tight, when fear pressed in like a second skin. She remembers the lessons repeated in hushed voices. Don't ask, don't doubt, don't hope. Anna learned to keep secrets before she learned to read. The world outside was a forbidden dream, glimpsed only in the hurried passages of strangers on the street, or the rare, trembling moments when a radio signal cut through the commune's isolation and brought the distant sound of laughter into her world. Anna's escape did not come in a single act of rebellion, but in the slow accumulation of small questions. Why do they call this love? Why does faith demand pain? She found her strength not in defiance, but in endurance, surviving the endless inspections, the punishments, the weight of watching others suffer in silence. When she finally left, slipping away in the pre-dawn hours, guided only by the memory of a map she'd once seen in a discarded schoolbook, she carried nothing but the clothes on her back and the name her mother had whispered to her in secret.
The world outside was not the paradise she had imagined. Freedom was cold and loneliness deeper than the walls she had left behind. But Anna learned to speak her own story, first in fragments, then in sentences, then in testimony before strangers who could never fully understand. She met others who bore the same invisible scars. Together, they built a fragile network of support. Phone calls in the middle of the night, letters that traveled continents, the quiet courage of surviving another day. Anna's story is echoed in countless others. The child who became an advocate, the brother who found his sister after decades of silence, the survivor who writes poetry to make sense of the unspeakable. Each voice is a reminder that even in the aftermath of atrocity, the human spirit endures. The pain does not disappear, but it is transformed into art, into activism, into the slow rebuilding of trust. Each voice is a reminder that even in the aftermath of atrocity, the human spirit endures. The pain does not disappear, but it is transformed. Through these stories, the legacy of the children of God is not one of total defeat, but of resilience carved from ruin. In Anna's adulthood, the past is never far. There are nights when the old fears return, when the sound of a closing door or the cadence of a hymn brings memories rushing back. But there are also mornings when she wakes to sunlight and the gentle sound of her own children laughing, free, unburdened, untouched by the doctrine that once defined her world. In these moments, Anna finds a fragile hope, that healing is possible, that cycles can be broken, and that the future need not be written by the wounds of the past. And in every survivor's eyes, there is a glimmer, not of forgetting, but of reclaiming what was lost, one memory at a time. History is a tapestry woven from both light and shadow. The story of the children of God is not just a cautionary tale about a cult. It is a mirror held up to the vulnerabilities of society itself. In the hunger for belonging, for purpose, for a place in the world, human beings become susceptible to visions that promise salvation but demand surrender. The line between faith and fanaticism is as thin as a breath, and once crossed, it is almost impossible to retrace. The victims of the children of God are not only those who suffered within its walls, but also the families left fractured, the communities left silent, and the generations marked by a legacy of pain. When trust is weaponized, when innocence is violated in the name of love, the consequences ripple outward. Echoes felt long after the last communist shuddered and the last hymn sung. The cult's machinery may have been dismantled, but its wounds linger, stitched into the fabric of survivors' lives and into the collective memory of all who dare to look closely at the abyss. Yet, in the ruins, something endures. Remembrance acts as resistance. To speak the truth, no matter how painful, is to reclaim power from the hands of abusers. Every survivor who tells their story, every advocate who demands justice, every listener who refuses to look away, chips away at the silence that once protected evil. In this way, the darkness is not allowed to multiply unchallenged. It is named, confronted, and, inch by inch, dispelled. We are reminded that the responsibility to protect the vulnerable is not the task of a single generation, but a duty that must be renewed over and over again.
It is not enough to condemn the horrors of the past. We must be vigilant in the present, questioning authority, guarding against the seduction of certainty, and remembering that the most dangerous ideas are those that silence dissent and sanctify obedience. The children of God stands as a testament to the cost of blind devotion, but also to the resilience of the human spirit.
For though innocence may be stolen and trust may be shattered, the act of remembering, of bearing witness, plants the seeds for healing. In the stories of survivors, we find not only pain, but also the blueprint for resistance, the courage to speak, the strength to demand justice, and the hope that the future can be different from the past. This is not only a story to be told, but a warning to be carried. May we remember so that others are spared. May we listen so that silence never reigns again. The world must hold space for these voices, for in their testimony lies the power to change laws, to awaken compassion, and to prevent the machinery of abuse from ever rising again. If this story moved you, share it. Every voice matters. Every truth matters. And as long as we remember, there is hope. The darkness is not absolute. It can be named, confronted, and, with time and courage, overcome.